We were talking before about COVID, things that change and didn't change.
Yeah.
How did that impact media? I know, Nick, you've got this sort of position of brands. You send me this stuff all the time. The sort of brand, what would you call it? What was the, starts with K, I can't remember the name.
I like it when you say I've been sending you stuff and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, because you just send me shit all the time.
Yeah.
You just
No,
like,
it's actually a bot that I've got.
yeah. So I think I'm talking to you, but I'm actually not. Okay, right.
It's my Calendly.
But there's starts with K. It's sort of like a rating of brands for the year.
Oh, right. Like the Kantar.
That's it, Kantar.
Brand Z and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yep. So you're always looking at it from a media, data, sort of brand perspective. You're obviously on the buying end of
My
media.
clients are, yeah.
Your clients are. What has been the change over the last 2 years, and what do you think is going to come back with a vengeance? I guess that's the main thing I'm curious about.
Yeah, you want to go for that?
I think people's experience. Fuck, we get into some real wanky language here, but so I'm not going to say people's experience of brand. I think what people consciously or subconsciously look to brands for has changed to a degree. So in the simplest form, brands are shortcuts. That's all they are. They sort of tell us, what we did last time or what other people are doing, and through paid media, we can increase that sort of cognitive availability, and also a brand can also sort of influence that idea of what are other people doing, and that'll influence our purchase behavior.
Interesting.
Now,
brands are heuristics.
Yeah. So traditionally that was a lot of like, right, we need traditional media, we need television, newspapers, etc. And then we need, shelf space. We want things to be ironed on the shelf. So we've got both that physical availability and that mental availability. Now, that was already changing, but it's that acceleration of change that's now happened such that most of the experience that people have of brands, not in a wanky way, just literally how they come across a brand is increasingly happening online, because we haven't been really going into shops that much for 2 years. And that's been at a time where social platforms, so Instagram and TikTok, have really sort of hit their strides in the past 12 months. And it's also where the talent economy of these creators as a new media channel has also hit its stride. And so the way that we experience brands has changed relatively quickly. I mean, it always changes quickly, but it's changed relatively quickly now, such that you can create a brand or you can be a old traditional brand. It doesn't matter being an old brand anymore, but you have these media channels of people, of talent that are on social platforms that might be making somebody aware of a brand for the first time ever, that might be delivering that message in a far more, and I hate to use the word authentic, but a far more authentic and believable way than a traditional sort of ad in a break in a TV show. And then that person will buy that thing through an e-commerce experience that is a pretty good experience, and then they'll have a customer support experience that is hopefully also a great experience, and the packaging that the thing gets delivered to them in is something. So all of these things, that whole sort of experience, that whole process that I just talked through, really, it was maybe in some Trendex sort of 5 years ago, but ultimately that's not how brands operated 5 years ago, and that's how good brands and increasingly most brands now are starting to sort of think about things. So I think there's been it is just that acceleration that we sort of talked about earlier, but it's this combination of sort of several things happening at the right time, combined with the pandemic, that has sort of seen that acceleration. So
do you think the talent thing will go away?
No, I think talent is the primary growth media channel for the next 10 or 20 years. I don't understand how that could not be true, because advertising is basically all other opportunities that brands ever had to drive awareness and create that cognitive availability has simply come from being next to something you were interested in. It was next to the newspaper article. It was between the two things on the television that you were watching. It was on the road that you were driving down. It was on the radio that you were listening to. It was simply creating awareness simply through being next to something you're interested in. But what the talent economy brings is that it's in something that you're interested in, like for better or worse. That's how we've ended up. And it's interesting because 4 or 5 years ago, as this was starting to happen, there was a hell of a lot of hand wringing around what is paid placement and all that sort of stuff. And it was mostly nonsense because it was always going to sort of come out in the wash, and it was always going to be generational. And an 18-year-old kid today knows exactly what's going on TikTok when they see a brand. We don't need to do too much hand wringing around how we're disclosing these things and all that sort of stuff. This is just going to be the natural sort of flow of things. So yeah. I think it's better. Like, it's better than the alternative. It's interesting. There are definitely bad sides to the talent economy. It's sort of a quick cycle, make it or you're out. Even if you do make it, you're probably going to be out in 18 months anyway. Is it a good thing that if you listen to Nick Bilton, being an influencer is the thing that more kids in the US want to do right now than any other job? And, it used to be fireman or whatever. How true that is, I don't know. But, maybe that's good. Maybe it's not. Do we need more firefighters? Probably we do. Do we need more influencers? Probably not. Is everyone entertained along the way? Yes. Do people who have ideas gain the ability to launch brands and sell products? Yes. Cool.
Fireman Sam nailed it. Both. Simultaneously tick both boxes.
Yeah. Influencer and fireman.
Yeah. Is Fireman Sam on TikTok?
I don't know. Should be. Yeah.
When are we going to run a campaign together, Dan, with talent?
Well, hang on one second. I just want to wind back on something Nick was saying before. I think that you can build sales and you can build a business without building a brand, right? So building a brand is one way to have a successful business, but it's not the only way. Lots of great businesses out there actually have no brand at all. And so I think what you've described in the way people are interacting with brands, I would 100% agree with if we talked about that's how people are interacting with businesses, right? That they're finding about them online and that they're buying things and they're having a customer service experience. I find that brands have a different dimension to them. And so when we think about traditionally, like, how does advertising work? How do brands work? There is this story about mental availability and physical availability, right? So it needs to be available to purchase somewhere. And the mental availability is we see ads and then somewhere down the track, I think I'm thirsty and then something pops into my head that I saw that Pepsi ad and I feel good about it. And I think the bit that description misses is, this concept of social imprinting, right? So this idea that it's not enough for me to see the ad. I have to know that other people saw the ad, especially for like what we call necktie purchases, especially for things that I buy that other people see, right? There is no point me buying a Rolex if I don't know that everybody else has seen the ad for Rolex and knows they're really expensive, right? There's no point me buying a particular brand of car that shows that I'm young and cool and into the finer things in life if I don't know that everybody else has seen this ad, other than just a chump. And I think that's why there are very successful businesses that have been 100% digital and have built their sales and have built their businesses online. But there are very, very few brands in the way we refer to brands that have built themselves without traditional media, without putting themselves on outdoor billboards, on TV, on radio, knowing that everybody else is seeing what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I would want to say, I'm not saying that those changes happen at the expense of traditional media as well. Okay, I still think traditional media, as long as traditional media exists, is an extremely powerful and important sort of thing. And my go-to for that is, and I've possibly even said this on this podcast before, so apologies to all the listeners who listen to every single episode. But I always find it hilarious that still to this day, you get all these traditional brands and all these traditional brand managers that are wringing their hands about how they can run the best performance media and how they can really optimize the shit out of all their digital media and all of that. And then you look at every tram in Melbourne and it's wrapped by a tech company. Yeah. It's Slack or it's REA or Domain or Super. Like the tech companies are wrapping trams. Yeah. And the dog food companies are trying to eke the last little cent out of their performance media. Yeah. It's this really sort of funny juxtaposition of like, hey guys, I think we know what works here.
Yeah, and I mean, and they probably don't appreciate that the 50 or 100 years of brand building somebody did for that dog food brand to get people even interested in searching for you in the first place.
Yeah. But is that wrapping of the trams really just a representation of where that brand is with their marketing, and that they've
Or
gone
where,
from
or where
being
that,
a business.
or where that marketer is with their security.
True, it's a good point. Like they've gone from the stage of like, we are this new sexy thing and we just get out there digitally to like, no, we need to not be the new thing anymore. We need to be the thing.
Yeah.
We need to be the category.
Well, there's also just a factor of awareness. There's reach and frequency there.
Yeah.
Like at some point, Slack needs to wrap a tram so that in order to grow, like, you know, Slack growth isn't linear and growth isn't smooth. And someone like Slack reaches a point where they have sort of expanded out through several circles of customer segmentation, and the circle that they then have to attack. And this is a while ago for Slack, they were wrapping trams, but they get to a point where the customer segmentation they have to attack is full of customers who have never heard of Slack before.
Yeah.
And through the majority of channels that everyone else hears about Slack, they never will.
Yeah.
So what do? You wrap a tram with Slack that is doing nothing more than getting the brand in front of people. And then when they are introduced to it via some other channel, and that channel might even be just through corporate IT, then they go, oh, I've heard of this thing before.
Yeah, exactly.
So do we then think that the change in traditional media is that traditional media has gone from the ubiquitous platform to the most socially valuable platform? Do now only the brands that can really afford it and understand the value in it advertise on like a Rolex, or we've all seen the Patek Philippe ads. See them in the newspaper. It's like you buy.
Well, someone's still buying ads in Vogue.
Yeah,
True.
Which only ever be. I mean, the fact that anyone can afford to advertise is pretty new. Like traditional media has always been expensive, and so there's a certain assumption that if this brand can afford to be on TV, they're probably going to be here in a year. So I probably should buy that washing machine. Whereas, you know, you see a Facebook ad for a brand you've never heard of selling washing machines, and what does it say to you? Oh, I don't know. These guys, are these guys going to be here in 6 weeks?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So from your perspective, nothing's really changed.
No, I mean, people want to be safe and they want to do what other people are doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, big traditional media has a big part to play in that.